People who don't play fighting games often specifically point to traditional special move inputs as one of the big reasons why they avoid the genre. These same people might point to Smash Bros. And its popularity to prove their point. From the very beginning, special moves in Smash have been done by pressing just the special button, or the special button plus a direction. Smash invented one-button special moves. Except, maybe it didn't? Let's look at Guile in Street Fighter 2. To do Guile's flash kick, you hold down, and then you press up plus kick. Assuming you've been crouch blocking for a second, flash kick is a one-button special. In that same situation, where you've been crouch blocking for a second, if you press forward plus punch, you get a sonic boom, with basically the exact same input, forward plus a button, that you do with Mario and Smash to throw a fireball. Guile's specials were explicitly designed for players who had difficulty doing the motion inputs for Ryu's Fireball and Dragon Punch specials. The devs smartly realized that these moves needed to be balanced with their inputs in mind. If Guile has charge, it's a lot easier to react to something with a flash kick since it's basically a one-button special move at that point. This is balanced out by Guile needing charge to be able to do the move in the first place. Ryu can Dragon Punch whenever he wants, but the complexity of the input balances that out and makes it tough to do that move on reaction to certain things. Simple inputs and traditional inputs are both valid design choices, but moves need to be balanced depending on which one you pick. If you don't do that, you'll end up with Guile in the 3DS version of Street Fighter 4, where you could use the touchscreen to do sonic booms and flash kicks without having to charge first.
Let's go! This is awesome! It's so great! This is the best. You guys have to pick Guile. You guys have to set your moves for Guile, and you'll be fine.
Street Fighter V hit 4.5 million copies sold in May of 2020. 4.5 million copies is impressive, but it's not hard to imagine Capcom looking at Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with its 32 million copies sold and wondering what they could do to get a bigger piece of the pie. Smash is generally seen as easy and approachable, and Street Fighter is, relatively speaking, not. With Street Fighter 6, Capcom decided they were finally doing easy special moves, at least as an option. They did it in a weird way. Street Fighter has traditionally had 6 attack buttons, light, medium, and heavy punch, and light, medium, and heavy kick. Capcom, reluctant to abandon the legacy special move inputs that they pioneered, left this traditional 6 attack button option in the game and called it Classic Controls. The easy special move option is called Modern Controls. You can do special moves with Modern Controls by just pressing the special button, or pressing the special button along with the direction, just like in Smash. The modern input is a lot faster and easier than the classic input, so Capcom tried to balance this out by giving you a damage penalty on the move. All of its other properties stay the same, so aside from the damage, the modern input version is strictly better. And this is where we start to run into problems. Smash only has simple inputs for its specials, so every special move's properties can be balanced around that input. In Street Fighter 6, Capcom kind of painted themselves into a corner, since it's impossible to balance a move for 2 wildly different input methods. Let's look at an example. Supers in Street Fighter do big damage and often have invulnerability, allowing them to blow through your opponent's moves. So the minute you get Super Meter, what's to stop you from just sitting and waiting for your opponent to commit to literally anything and then supering them for free? Doing a move on reaction to something is a 2-part process. First, you've got to see the thing you want to react to, recognize it, and decide to react to it. After that, you have to do the input for the move you're reacting with. A common input for supers is something like a double quarter circle forward plus an attack button. This means the fastest you can possibly do the input is 6 frames. Realistically, you're not going to do it perfectly, and it's going to take you longer than that. So your reaction time plus the input time means that you can't just super your opponent for free the minute they touch a button. In Street Fighter 6, Luke's level 1 super is fast and reaches really far. If you're using classic controls, the input limits you from blowing up lots of things on reaction with it. But if you pick modern controls, you can do the super with just heavy attack plus special. You can even assign a button to heavy plus special to do this with the press of a single button. This means that a modern Luke player can react to things that a classic Luke player just can't.
Oh man. Come on, hit him! Come on, man. Come on, please. Hit him out of it. Dude, modern level 1 Luke is so fucking dumb.
Modern and Classic are not two different ways to pilot the same character. The modern version and the classic version are two different characters. In Granblue Fantasy Versus, you don't commit to simple versus technical inputs at character select, so they avoided the Street Fighter VI accidentally created two characters problem. You can freely use either simple or technical inputs during the match. I really don't love this solution either. You're adding an extra button to do the simple inputs, so you're complicating the control scheme. You get bonus damage for using technical inputs, so to play correctly, players will have to consciously choose to use technical inputs in situations where reaction time is not a factor, alongside simple inputs, when reaction time does matter or you need to be able to mash out the move. Simple inputs are supposed to be there to make the game more approachable, so it seems kind of self-defeating or self-contradictory or something if the presence of simple inputs actually make your game more complicated. All of these issues I'm describing are due to the fact that these developers want to have their cake and eat it too. They really want simple special moves, and they really do not want to get rid of traditional inputs. Luckily, the solution is pretty obvious. Just pick one or pick the other and design your game around it. You can find it in indie titles like Fantasy Strike or Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, but we have yet to see a large traditional fighting game developer take this risk. The trend towards simple special move inputs has only gotten stronger, and I do think it's important to recognize that they have some significant downsides. Traditional motion inputs let you do more with less. You can keep the number of action buttons low while still allowing for expansive movesets. Simple inputs tend to have issues with this and run into one or both of the following issues. 1. You need a lot of buttons. If you pick modern controls in Street Fighter VI, you need more buttons and you have access to fewer moves. 2. You need to use weird inputs. For example, Smash has a single attack button. If you press the analog stick slightly forward and press it, you get a tilt attack. If you press the stick further forward and press attack, you get a smash attack. If you press the analog stick further forward and wait a tiny amount of time before pressing the attack button, you get a dash attack. So you have 3 extremely similar inputs for 3 distinct moves. I personally struggle to control my character in Smash way more than I do in any traditional fighting game. Despite those issues, I think we'll continue to see a trend towards simplified inputs. The biggest reason is the one we've already talked about. People perceive games with traditional inputs as difficult, and they perceive games with one-button specials as approachable. The second big reason for this push towards simplified controls and one-button specials, the one that we haven't talked about at all yet, is controllers. Traditional fighting games were born in arcades. The games were designed for arcade cabinets that used levers for movement and had some number of action buttons on a flat panel. We already talked about how moves need to be balanced around their inputs, but the arcade environment allowed developers to take this a step further and balance moves around not just the input, but around the specific input device they knew players would be using. The classic example is Tekken's Electric Wind God Fist. You need to do forward, neutral, down, and then down forward plus 2. The final part of the motion, the down forward, needs to be input on the exact same frame as the attack button. The developers knew players were in arcades using a lever for directions, so precisely hitting down forward on the lever with your left hand on the same frame that you hit the attack button with your right hand is really difficult. On an all-button controller, you don't have that ambiguity of when the lever will actuate a specific direction, so doing consistent electrics becomes pretty trivial. Hybrid layouts like the cross-up allow for the same thing. With the right input device, something that took years to master now takes minutes. If you balance a move and its input with a specific input device in mind, the move's strength will depend on which controller the player is using. For example, in lots of fighting games, the input for a forward dash is tapping forward twice in a row. Dashes are usually quick enough that they're right on the edge of being reactable, so in the heat of the match when your opponent is trying to look for and react to a half dozen different things, you can sneak in a forward dash and start some offense. On a lever, the travel time of hitting forward, letting the lever go back to neutral, and then hitting forward again will take long enough that you'll see the character walk forward a tiny bit from the first forward input, stop, and then the dash comes out. This stutter step telegraphs the dash and gives your opponent a little bit of extra time to react to it. On an all-button controller, you can press and hold forward and then tap and release back. Doing the back cancels out the forward, so when you release it, it gives you a second forward input. You get an instant dash, which is much more difficult to react to. Because of the input that the developer chose for a dash, my controller makes my dash better. This is why Guilty Gear Strive adding a dash button is a big deal. Your input device doesn't matter. Everybody can dash the same. Accessibility led to that initial push towards simpler inputs, but I think this controller issue is what's going to keep us headed down this path. If you balance moves around traditional inputs, certain controllers will make those inputs easier. However, if any given move is just a simple button press, it's going to be the same for everybody, whether they're on a traditional arcade stick, an all-button controller, or a Guitar Hero controller. Thanks as always for watching. I go by Zissou online, so if you want to find more of my stuff or support me, here's where you can go. See you next time.